Hello and welcome to the video. My name is Vaselli and today we are looking at the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K full frame. It has been months since I've got this camera and honestly not that much has changed on it from my previous review. So if you want to know some, my full thoughts on that, go and check that video out. Given that I've done a whole load of different projects on this camera now, including recently a TV commercial here in the UK, shot entirely on the Cinema 6K. Opted to use this over the Ursa Mini 12K. There was a lot of gimbal work involved, so this was the camera to go for. And with the PYXIS kind of around the corner apparently, it's so bizarre to me that these camera companies, and most of them do it, they're like, here's the shiny new camera, it's coming sometime. It will arrive when it arrives. But yeah, anyway, with the PYXIS coming up, I've been getting quite a few questions from people asking if I'm going to upgrade to the PYXIS or swap or sell this and go for that. But kind of the shortened answer to that is no. I think both kind of have a place, and especially after this recent TV commercial, I kind of do see a purpose to having both cameras. Like, which one's right for you? I guess watch this video, watch my other review, and you can probably figure that out for yourself. As I mentioned, I've done a lot of different work on the camera recently, but I don't have that much new footage to actually show you because a lot of it is kind of under NDA or still in progress in terms of the edit, so it's not released yet. That being said, the kind of work that I've been doing, I've done some social stuff with some of the companies involved with the Olympics, fashion commercial stuff. Again, I can't show you any of that stuff, and it turned out really nice as well. So proper studio stuff, some great lighting setups, some yacht commercials, really lovely stuff. Basically what I'm getting at is a whole variety of different shoots with this camera. So for me, it's really important when I come and do these videos that you understand that I'm using this camera in the field on real paid jobs for actual clients. I'm also shooting this video right now on the Pocket 4K with this Metabone speed booster and a Canon 2470. Following on from my prior review, the image quality out of the Cinema 6K full frame is superb. It really is just amazing. Having the full frame is fantastic because a lot of the time, especially when I recently shooting in a hotel, you need to have that wider field of view when you're in such tight spaces. We shot this commercial on the Canon Cine lenses. We didn't actually have the 14mm included in our set, but on a 24mm, we did have a shot where we wanted to get that 120 frames per second slow-mo. So that was in HD. Yeah, I needed that wider field of view from a full frame camera because if I was on the 6K Pro, I don't think I would have been able to get the shot. That was very important to me because I know I do a lot of that kind of work where I'm in tight spaces. So again, I kind of know what kit I need. Same with the Ursa as well, because that's a Super 35 sensor. Would have been very tricky to get this shot of, I think it was someone coming in and jumping onto the bed. You know what kind of work you do, so you'll know that if that comment kind of relates to you or not. Now, something else on this shoot, which I mean, on pretty much all these shoots, actually, when I get the Blackmagic camera out, there's a lot of times where, a client might look at it and be like, like, I don't like to rig my cameras up. I just like it to be quick, easy, get it out and go. My experience in the past when I have had to rig cameras up, pieces are falling off, screws come loose, I'm trying to move quickly. It's not really for me. The only time I've really enjoyed that process was with the Red Skull W cameras, where you can kind of mount on and it's a cableless setup. So that was awesome. And I'm really interested to see how my experience with the PYXIS is, given that relationship with rigging cameras up. I am actually very excited to rig up the PYXIS and kind of go back to that workflow and kind of try that setup again. But that being said, what I was getting at is on obviously the back of all these Blackmagic cameras, I have my display lot in there and I like to work off that. The clients are always just looking over your shoulder and whatnot, and they're like, wow, the image looks incredible. And it gives them such confidence with yourself, and it gives you confidence that you're capturing the right image. It's something that I really need to just, shout about. So the PYXIS also will have this display. I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit, but for the PYXIS camera, one thing I do like, and if I was doing this TV commercial again and I had the PYXIS, I would use the PYXIS because it would allow me to run a feed out for the director. Now, my job role is typically a director, but I do DP as well on some shoots. And this was a case where I was the DP. For me, when they ask for video out, it's hard to do on this camera, especially when we're running quickly on a gimbal for a lot of the shoot. So yeah, the PYXIS would have been ideal because I could have rigged that kind of setup out. This screen is pretty big, and if I want to do playback, I can quickly show client and the director that playback anyway. So not perfect, but having this screen is awesome. And so many times the client talks about how impressive it looks, the footage and stuff like that on the back of this display. Not only that, obviously I mentioned before time and time again, and if you're a Blackmagic user, you know the UI is insane, very responsive, fast. One little nitpick I've got is that, I don't know why, but it feels like the playback is a little bit slower at the moment. When you hit playback to, it just feels half a second slower. Nitpick, but when you're on set and someone asks to just, can we check playback on a display, it is an extra second. Super nitpicky, I know. Also, media, the change to the, what is it now these days? CF Express is great. Much cheaper media. We can shoot a higher quality without having to worry, about burning through cards and whatnot. One other thing, you'll see that I've actually got a 6K Pro cage on this right now. The form factor is pretty similar, so it seems to fit on just fine. It was a little snug, but I've got another shoot next week, and following on from the prior shoot, I was like, I should probably put the cage back on it because I'm gonna have to rig up mics and all of the bits and bobs for the job next week in Spain. So let's get into some things I don't like about the camera after all this time. As mentioned, I was shooting abroad in Spain, harsh sunlight, on boats that are moving. Lots of things that could go wrong in that situation, but having no ND filters sucks. I mean, obviously I've got them, variable NDs that I use. I'll leave a link to some of those in the comments, like in the notes below. Yeah, I was switching between different lenses and having to carry those ND filters across, sometimes different filter threads. Not the end of the world, just something I would like to see in another camera. I believe there might be some solutions coming for our L mount, almost like the Kippertie solutions. Low light, again, it's not good at all really in these cameras, but if you do find yourself shooting event work, in fact I did do an event at the start of this year, I did have to crank the ISO and I did have to apply quite a lot of noise reduction in Resolve. It was not good really at all, so not the camera for event work in my opinion, unless you're going to be doing something like your Tomorrowlands, your Ultra festivals. The lighting is fine, obviously those things, because there's tons of it, so you're good to go in that scenario. But if you're doing kind of a lower or more kind of interior event work, you are going to struggle, I think. Right, so here's a big downside to this camera, which I find really odd, and it might be a me thing, but I'm pretty sure it isn't. I mentioned it previously, but I found that this camera, for whatever reason, does not play well with this stabilization within Resolve, and even shots which are just handheld, basically a tripod shot, they can just have all kinds of issues stabilizing. It'll be warping all over the place. And for me, in the past, the way I like to shoot is very quick, and it doesn't give me confidence at all if I can't think in my head, right, I can just stabilize these shots. Because in the past, I know the capabilities of the camera and the software I'm using. So when it starts to give me those doubts, it becomes a little bit tricky, where I will reach for the tripod now and be like, no, let's just make sure we get it, because it might not actually stabilize. I don't know if it's a camera issue or a Resolve issue. I've mentioned it to them, but I would love for that to be resolved. Battery life, totally fine by me. I've just become used to using these cameras. This is something the PYXIS should hopefully improve upon, and also you'll probably be able to adapt a V-mount to that camera, but we'll see. I'd probably always use this camera with a grip, actually, unless it was on a gimbal. If I had the grip, I had to give mine back to Blackmagic, and I regret giving them it back, but I haven't found myself just wanting to ask for one right now, because I do like to keep a lightweight setup as well. So pros and cons. So I guess, why would you get the PYXIS? Well, as I've already mentioned, if you're someone that enjoys rigging the camera out and you like to have things set your own way, then the PYXIS is probably going to be the camera for you. If you're also someone who's been asked to do, wireless monitor out for a director or client, then yes, the PYXIS is also for you as well. The PYXIS will give you the flexibility you need on smaller productions and bigger productions alike, but it will take you a little bit more, it can cost you a little bit more money with the accessories to get you there. In my opinion, I would say 90% of the Blackmagic user base will be fine with the Cinema 6K camera or an Ursa 12K Mini, the older ones, because the prices on those are really great right now. That's what I would aim for. You will know if you're in the, if you're part of the market for the PYXIS cameras. I think you could have a Cinema 6K and a PYXIS camera. I think those two would sit really nicely together as well, given I believe it's the same sensor. So that's kind of my thoughts on the Cinema 6K versus the PYXIS. So overall, after having the Cinema 6K camera for whatever it's been now, the image quality is superb. I'd give the camera like an 8.5 out of 10 if I was going to give it a score. The things that are really holding it back are obviously, as mentioned, the lack of NDs, the low light performance, which is just bizarre. I don't understand why it's worse than the previous cameras. And the last little thing is I would love 4K 120 frames uncropped at the full frame. That would be the icing on the cake for me. Yeah, I mean, mainly the low light and that, the frame rate option would be spot on. The HD is fine, to be fair, and upscaled is fine. For me, the price point of the Cinema 6K and the full frame make it the most obvious choice in pretty much the entirety of the Blackmagic lineup. If anyone asks me which camera they should get these days, it's the Cinema 6K, unless you're in that demographic of, you're shooting a lot of event work in very dark areas. Potentially weddings you might struggle with as well. I've not shot a wedding in a long time, but you might struggle a little bit in some of those low light situations. So you might want another camera for the evening kind of area. But yeah, that's kind of just a very quick update video. My thoughts haven't really changed too much. I still love the camera. It's amazing. The price point, they had a sale on it like a while back and it was like even cheaper. It's just a superb camera. You can shoot anything from a TV commercial all the way down to just a quick event film. So I think it's got all your bases covered. Everything's built into it. You're not having to buy tons of different accessories for it either. You will know if you're in the market for a PYXIS camera, if that's your style of shooting. So apologies if this video has not been like more insightful than previous videos. I just thought people would want to know. I still get messages about what camera I'm using and if you should if you should upgrade and stuff. So hopefully that answers your questions. If you want to discuss the Cinema 6K a little bit more in the comments, just drop me a message below or follow me on Instagram. Yeah, that's me. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Vaselli and I will catch you in the next one. As a quick side note on the end of this video, a couple of people have asked me about the name change recently, and to be honest, it mainly comes down to the fact that there are a lot of Cameron Wards out there, a lot of Cam Wards. I was just like, I've got my other name, which is from my Italian side of the family, and I just thought, you know what, let's go with that, let's run with it. So yeah, that was the reason for the name change. It's just a much more unique name. I like the name, and I just thought, let's go with that moving forwards. Yeah.